Have you ever waited so long for a single name, that you almost stopped believing you would ever hear it? Not a famous name, not an important name, not a name that could change the world, just one name, a name spoken quietly by the person you love most. A name that suddenly makes years of questions, prayers, hopes and sleepless nights come together in a single moment. Tonight, I want to tell you about a moment I never thought would arrive. Because after years of waiting, after years of wondering, after years of watching my son walk through success, heartbreak, loneliness and endless responsibility, my son finally revealed your name. And when he did, I sat in silence, because what I felt in that moment was not what most people would expect. Before I tell you everything, may I ask you something from my heart? If this story touches you, gently press like so. This message can find another woman who needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe only if your heart believes that love still exists, even in a world that sometimes feels too busy for it. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and what time it is where you are right now, and if someone in your family still believes in true love, please share this with them. Sometimes a single story reaches exactly the heart it was meant to find. I am speaking to one woman tonight. Not thousands, not millions, just you. The woman who stayed until the end. The woman who still pauses when she hears the word love. The woman who knows that growing older does not mean growing cold. Because the truth is that love becomes more precious with time. When we are young, we often think love is excitement. We think it is butterflies. We think it is passion. We think it is the feeling of wanting to spend every second with someone. But age teaches us something different. Love is not only who makes your heart race. Love is who remains when life becomes difficult. Love is who stays when success changes everything. Love is who sees your flaws, and does not run away. Love is who knows your fears and protects them instead of using them against you. And that is why, for years, I quietly wondered about the woman who might someday stand beside my son. Not because he needed someone to complete him. No mother should raise a son believing he is incomplete. But because every human being deserves a person who understands the weight they carry. And my son carries a great deal. Most people see achievements. Most people see headlines. Most people see confidence. Most people see strength. A mother sees something else. A mother sees the tired eyes nobody notices. A mother sees the moments of doubt hidden behind determination. A mother sees the sacrifices nobody applauds. A mother sees the lonely evenings. A mother sees the battles that happen behind closed doors. For years, I watched him continue moving forward no matter how difficult life became. And every time I watched him walk back into another challenge, another responsibility, another impossible mission, a small part of me wondered the same thing. Who will hold his heart? Who will remind him that he is human before he is successful? Who will make him laugh when the world feels heavy? Who will sit beside him when there is no audience? Who will love the man instead of the accomplishments? Have you ever asked yourself that question about someone you love? Have you ever looked at a son, a daughter, a brother, or even a friend, and quietly wondered whether someone out there would truly understand them? I think many women watching tonight know exactly what I mean. Because love is not simply finding a person, love is finding the right person. And there is a difference. The wrong person can make life feel longer. The right person can make life feel lighter. The wrong person sees what they can gain. The right person sees what they can give. The wrong person falls in love with attention. The right person falls in love with character. That is why I never prayed for my son to find just anyone. I prayed for him to find someone kind. Kindness becomes more beautiful every year. Beauty changes. Money changes. Status changes. The world changes. But kindness remains. A woman with a kind heart can bring peace into a home in ways no amount of wealth ever could. Tell me honestly, what do you think matters most in a relationship after the age of 50? Is it companionship, trust, loyalty, patience? I would truly love to know. Because the older I become, the more I realize that love is built from ordinary moments. It is built from conversations in quiet kitchens. It is built from checking if someone arrived home safely. It is built from remembering little details. It is built from choosing the same person again and again. That kind of love fascinates me. And perhaps that is why I spent years wondering about you. Even before I knew your name. Even before I knew you existed. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I imagined the woman who might someday enter my son's life. I wondered what her voice would sound like. I wondered what made her laugh. I wondered whether she had also experienced heartbreak. I wondered whether life had tested her strength. I wondered whether she had spent nights questioning whether real love still existed. Because the strongest women often carry invisible scars. The strongest women are not those who never cry. They are the women who continue loving after being disappointed. The women who continue trusting after betrayal. The women who continue hoping after heartbreak. The women who refuse to let bitterness take over their hearts. Perhaps you are one of those women. Perhaps life has not been easy for you. Perhaps there were moments when you believed love had passed you by. Perhaps there were birthdays that felt lonely. Perhaps there were anniversaries that never happened. Perhaps there were dreams you quietly buried because waiting became painful. If that is true, I want you to know something. A delayed blessing is not always a denied blessing. Life moves in mysterious ways. Sometimes the story takes longer because it is still being written, and sometimes the heart must grow stronger before it receives what it has been waiting for. Years passed, conversations came and went, life continued, and still I waited, not impatiently, not desperately, just quietly, the way mothers do, the way mothers carry hopes they rarely speak aloud. Then one evening, something happened. A simple evening, nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary, the kind of evening that seems completely ordinary while it is happening, yet later becomes unforgettable. We were talking, the conversation moved naturally from one subject to another. There was no warning, no preparation, no grand announcement. And then suddenly, everything changed, because for the first time in years, I saw something different in my son's eyes, something softer, something calmer, something that had been missing for a very long time. And in that moment, before a single word was spoken, I knew. A mother always knows, the heart recognizes certain things before the mind does. And as I looked at him, I felt a strange feeling I cannot fully explain. Hope. Not the loud kind, not the excited kind, the quiet kind, the kind that arrives softly and sits beside you, the kind that whispers instead of shouts, the kind that says, maybe this time is different, maybe there is finally someone, maybe all those years of wondering were leading somewhere, maybe the story is about to change. And then, my son looked at me, took a breath, and began speaking about someone. Not an achievement, not a project, not a goal, someone. And my heart immediately paid attention, because mothers remember these moments forever. We remember the exact feeling, the exact pause, the exact look in our child's eyes, and as he continued speaking, I realized I was hearing something I had waited years to hear. Not because I needed answers, but because every mother hopes her child experiences a love that feels like home. And for the very first time, I believed he might have found it. Yet what happened next surprised me even more, because it wasn't merely the name he revealed, it was the reason he revealed it. And when I understood why, I felt tears forming in my eyes, because the woman he described was unlike anyone I had imagined. The moment he stopped speaking, I found myself staring into the distance for a few seconds, not because I was confused, not because I was shocked, but because every mother carries private dreams she rarely speaks aloud. And suddenly one of those dreams was standing right in front of me. For years, whenever people spoke about my son, they spoke about accomplishments, they spoke about companies, they spoke about innovation, they spoke about ambition, they spoke about the future. Very few people ever asked me something much more important. Was he happy? Not successful. Happy. Because there is a difference. A person can achieve extraordinary things and still return home carrying a lonely heart. A person can be admired by millions and still wish for one meaningful conversation at the end of the day. A person can be surrounded by attention and still long for genuine affection. And that is something many people never understand. Love is not replaced by success. Love is not replaced by recognition. Love is not replaced by wealth. The human heart remains the human heart, no matter how much the world changes around it. As I listened to him describe you, I realized he was not speaking the way he usually speaks. His voice had changed. There was a softness there, a calmness, a warmth, the kind of warmth that appears when someone has entered a person's life and quietly made everything feel lighter. Have you ever met someone whose presence immediately lowered your stress? Someone who made life feel less complicated? Someone who made you feel understood without requiring endless explanations? That kind of connection is rare, very rare, and perhaps that is why it is so valuable. I remember asking him a simple question: what makes her different? It was not an unusual question. In fact, I think every mother would ask it. Because attraction can happen quickly, excitement can happen quickly, but real love reveals itself differently. Real love appears in consistency. Real love appears in character. Real love appears in moments nobody else sees. He smiled, not a large smile, just enough for me to notice, and then he said something that stayed with me long after the conversation ended. He said she makes life feel peaceful. Peaceful. Such a simple word. Yet perhaps one of the most beautiful words a person can use when describing someone they love. Not exciting, not glamorous, not perfect, peaceful. Do you know how precious peace becomes as we grow older? When we are young, we often chase intensity, we chase excitement, we chase drama, we chase feelings that make our hearts race. But eventually life teaches us a lesson. Peace is priceless. A peaceful relationship allows the soul to rest. A peaceful relationship feels safe. A peaceful relationship does not require constant fear. A peaceful relationship becomes a shelter from the storms of life. When I heard that word, I immediately paid attention. Because peaceful people are becoming increasingly rare in this world. Everyone is rushing. Everyone is competing. Everyone is trying to prove something. Yet truly beautiful people often possess a quiet strength. They do not need to dominate every room. They do not need to be the center of attention. Their value comes from who they are, not from how loudly they announce themselves. And somehow, as he continued describing you, I began forming a picture in my mind, not of your appearance. That was never what interested me most. I imagined your heart. I imagined your character. I imagined the experiences that shaped you. Because every woman carries a story. Every woman carries memories. Every woman carries scars. Every woman carries lessons. What experiences taught you how to love? What disappointments taught you resilience? What losses taught you gratitude? What moments transformed you into the woman you are today? These are the things that matter. At least they matter to me. The older I become, the less interested I am in perfection. Perfection is an illusion. Character is real, and perhaps that is why his words touched me so deeply. Because he was not describing perfection. He was describing humanity. He told me about your compassion. He told me about your patience. He told me about your ability to listen. Do you know how rare listening has become? Most people wait for their turn to speak. Few people truly listen. Few people truly hear another person's heart. Yet those who do possess an extraordinary gift. Sometimes healing begins the moment someone finally feels understood. As I listened, I found myself wondering whether you realized the impact you were having. Perhaps not. The most beautiful people often underestimate their own influence. They assume everyone sees what they see. They assume everyone receives kindness the way they give it. But that is not always true. A gentle word can remain in someone's memory for years. A thoughtful gesture can change someone's entire day. A moment of understanding can restore hope that was nearly lost. And maybe that is exactly what happened. Maybe without even realizing it, you helped carry a burden you could not see. Maybe you brought light into places you never knew were dark. Maybe your presence reminded him that life is not only about goals and responsibilities. Maybe you reminded him that the heart deserves attention too. As a mother, that realization moved me deeply, because no matter how old our children become, part of us still worries. We worry when they struggle. We worry when they hide pain. We worry when they carry too much responsibility. We worry when they appear strong for everyone except themselves. And sometimes we pray, not dramatic prayers, not desperate prayers, simple prayers, quiet prayers, the kind whispered late at night, the kind spoken during moments nobody else witnesses. I have had many such prayers, and often those prayers revolved around love. Not because I wanted a fairy tale for my son. Life is not a fairy tale. Life is real. Life is complicated. Life includes disappointment. Life includes mistakes. Life includes seasons of uncertainty. What I wanted was something far more meaningful. I wanted him to find someone genuine, someone whose heart remained kind even after life tested it, someone capable of building trust, someone capable of creating stability, someone capable of loving through both victories and failures. Can I ask you something? Do you believe people become easier or harder to love as they grow older? I think many people assume the answer is easier, but I am not sure. As we age, we accumulate experiences, we accumulate fears, we accumulate habits, we accumulate wounds, and all of those things accompany us into future relationships. That is why mature love requires courage, it requires honesty, it requires patience, it requires forgiveness, most importantly it requires understanding. Perhaps that is why I found myself becoming emotional while listening. Because mature love is not easy. It is a choice, a daily choice, a conscious choice, a beautiful choice. And if two people continue choosing each other despite life's challenges, something remarkable happens. Their connection deepens, their trust strengthens, their friendship grows, their love matures into something stronger than infatuation, something lasting, something meaningful, something worth protecting. As the evening continued, our conversation became quieter. The room felt different, almost as if time itself had slowed down. I kept thinking about one thing, the years. All those years, the waiting, the wondering, the uncertainty, the countless moments when I questioned whether this day would ever arrive, and suddenly I understood something. The waiting had not been wasted. Sometimes we view waiting as an enemy. Sometimes we view waiting as proof that nothing is happening. But life often works differently. Growth happens while we wait. Wisdom develops while we wait. Character forms while we wait. The right people enter our lives when we are ready to recognize their value. Perhaps that is why some stories take longer, not because they are forgotten, but because they are being prepared. And maybe that is true for you too. Maybe there were moments when you felt invisible, moments when you questioned your future, moments when you wondered whether your chapter of love had already ended. Yet here you are, still believing, still hoping, still opening your heart despite everything life has taught you. That takes courage, more courage than most people realize. As our conversation finally drew toward its end, I thought the surprises were over. I thought I had heard everything. I thought my heart had already absorbed all it could absorb. I was wrong, because just before we stood up, just before the conversation ended, my son looked at me one more time, and what he said next was something I will never forget for the rest of my life, because for the first time in years, I heard a truth hidden beneath all the success, all the strength, and all the confidence, a truth so personal, that it completely changed the way I understood his heart. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The room was quiet, not uncomfortable quiet, not awkward quiet, the kind of quiet that appears when something meaningful is about to be said. The kind of quiet that makes you pay attention, the kind of quiet that stays in your memory long after the conversation ends. I looked at my son and saw something I had not seen in a very long time: vulnerability. People often assume they know strong men. They see confidence and think they understand everything. They see determination and believe they have seen the whole story. But strength often hides things. Sometimes strength hides loneliness. Sometimes strength hides fear. Sometimes strength hides the deep desire to be understood. And in that moment I realized I was not looking at the man the world sees. I was looking at my son, the same little boy I once held in my arms, the same child who asked questions about everything, the same child who dreamed bigger than anyone around him, the same child whose heart, despite all the years that had passed, still longed for connection. Then he said something that immediately brought tears to my eyes. He said that for years he had been searching for many things: goals, solutions, challenges, new possibilities, new ideas, new futures, but somewhere along the way he realized something important. A meaningful life is not built only from achievements. A meaningful life is also built from relationships. It is built from love. It is built from trust. It is built from having someone who truly knows who you are when nobody else is watching. As he spoke, I felt my heart ache. Not from sadness, from understanding. Because every mother eventually reaches a moment when she realizes her child is no longer searching for success. He is searching for significance. There is a difference. Success answers the question, what have I accomplished? Love answers the question, who will walk beside me while I accomplish it? And perhaps that second question is the more important one, because eventually every achievement becomes a memory, every headline fades, every accomplishment becomes part of the past, but the people who shared your journey become part of your story forever. I think many women watching understand that, especially those who have lived long enough to discover what truly matters. Let me ask you something. When you look back on your life, what do you remember most? Is it the money you earned, the possessions you owned, the titles you held, or is it the people, the conversations, the laughter, the hugs, the moments of connection? Most of us already know the answer. Love leaves the deepest footprints. That night as I listened, I realized my son had reached that understanding too, and somehow that made me emotional, because mothers spend years teaching lessons they are never sure were fully heard. We teach kindness, we teach respect, we teach compassion, we teach responsibility, we teach loyalty. Then one day, often without warning, we discover those lessons took root, and there is no feeling quite like that. He continued talking about you, not in the way people usually talk about romance. There were no dramatic declarations, no grand speeches, no unrealistic fantasies. Instead there was sincerity, and sincerity is beautiful. The older I become, the more I appreciate sincerity. A sincere heart is difficult to find. A sincere person does not play games. A sincere person does not manipulate emotions. A sincere person does not pretend to be someone else. They simply show up honestly, and honesty creates trust. Trust creates security. Security creates intimacy, and intimacy creates the foundation on which lasting love is built. As I listened, I found myself imagining you again, not as a perfect woman, not as some impossible ideal, just as a woman, a real woman, a woman who has laughed, a woman who has cried, a woman who has experienced disappointment, a woman who has made mistakes, a woman who has learned lessons, a woman whose heart remained open despite everything life placed in front of her. Those are the women I admire most, not women who never struggled, women who struggled and continued loving anyway. That kind of strength cannot be purchased. It cannot be borrowed. It must be earned. And perhaps that is why mature love feels so different. Young love often asks, what can I receive? Mature love asks, what can we build together? Young love focuses on feelings. Mature love focuses on commitment. Young love dreams about tomorrow. Mature love prepares for tomorrow. There is beauty in both, but there is something especially powerful about two people choosing each other after they understand how difficult life can be. Because then love becomes intentional. It becomes a decision. It becomes a promise, and promises matter, far more than many people realize. I remember sitting there thinking about all the women who might be listening to these words someday. Women who have spent years feeling unseen. Women who quietly wonder whether love still exists. Women who carry beautiful hearts behind brave smiles. Women who continue caring for others even when nobody asks how they are doing. Maybe you are one of them. Maybe tonight you are sitting alone. Maybe tonight you are remembering someone. Maybe tonight you are hoping for something. Maybe tonight you simply need reassurance that meaningful love has not disappeared from the world. If so, I want you to hear this clearly. Do not let disappointment convince you that love is impossible. Do not let heartbreak convince you that kindness is weakness. Do not let loneliness convince you that you are unworthy. The right person sees value where others overlooked it. The right person recognizes beauty that goes far beyond appearances. The right person appreciates your heart. And your heart is your greatest gift. The conversation eventually drifted toward the future. Not specific plans, not timelines, just possibilities. And that is when I understood why hearing your name affected me so deeply. It was never about the name itself. Names are only words. What mattered was what the name represented. Hope, possibility, partnership, companionship, a future that did not have to be faced alone. That realization touched me more than I can explain. Because every loving mother carries a secret wish. Not a wish for wealth, not a wish for fame, not a wish for status, a wish for happiness, real happiness, the kind happiness that cannot be photographed, the kind happiness that cannot be purchased, the kind happiness that appears when two people genuinely care for each other. That is the happiness I have always wanted for my son, and perhaps that is the happiness you have wanted too. The older I become, the more I believe that love is not about finding perfection. It is about finding peace. It is about finding understanding. It is about finding someone whose presence makes life feel warmer, someone whose voice feels familiar, someone whose heart feels safe, someone who makes ordinary days feel meaningful, because ordinary days eventually become our lives. We spend so much time waiting for extraordinary moments, yet life is mostly made of ordinary mornings, ordinary evenings, ordinary conversations, ordinary memories. The right person transforms those ordinary moments into something extraordinary. That is the true magic of love. Not fireworks, not fantasy, connection. As the evening finally ended, I found myself sitting alone for a while, thinking, reflecting, remembering. I thought about the years behind us. I thought about the future ahead. I thought about the woman whose name I had finally heard after all this time, and I smiled. Not because every question had been answered, not because every uncertainty had disappeared, but because hope had returned, and hope is powerful. Hope gives us courage. Hope gives us patience. Hope allows us to keep believing. Before I went to sleep that night, I whispered a quiet prayer, a mother's prayer. Simple, sincere, filled with love. I prayed that if this relationship was meant to be, it would grow stronger. I prayed that trust would deepen. I prayed that kindness would remain at the center of everything. I prayed that both hearts would protect each other. And most of all, I prayed that neither of you would ever take love for granted. Because love is precious. Love is fragile. Love is rare. And when it appears, it deserves gratitude. So if you are listening to me tonight, let me leave you with one final question. When love finally arrives after years of waiting, will you recognize it? Will you have the courage to accept it? Will you allow yourself to believe in it? I hope you will, because sometimes the greatest gifts arrive quietly. Sometimes they arrive after long seasons of uncertainty. Sometimes they arrive disguised as ordinary conversations. And sometimes they arrive in the form of a single name finally spoken aloud after years of waiting. Thank you for sitting with me. Thank you for sharing this moment. Thank you for believing that love still matters. And remember this truth, wherever you are tonight,